Alright, so I realize the 7950 is getting on a bit at this point, but there still hasn't been a replacement, of course, so I did want to talk about the twin Frozr cooler and sort of my opinions on that after I've been sort of using the card for several months now. So what I'm going to do is I did the benchmarking video where I sort of set one clock and then ran a bunch of benchmarks, but I never really talked about noise levels and sort of how hot the card gets and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll do a couple different clocks and a couple different voltages, and I'll put the camera near the card and let you hear it. And I'll show you the afterburner on-screen display, and so you can see the temperatures and the fan speeds and all that stuff for each clock speed. So I'll do that, and so this is going to be kind of my opinion on the cooler. So to sum it up, it's not really the quietest thing ever even on stock. It's okay on stock, but it's a little bit, it's louder than some. But then as soon as you start to put any extra volts into it, it does start to get quite loud, and so I was a little bit disappointed in it. I would have liked to have seen a twin Frozr cooler that was a little bit better, a little bit quieter and cooler at the higher voltages. And obviously the twin Frozr 4 is out now and stuff like the Lightning Edition and all that stuff, the Power Edition. But for the 3, I like the look of the 3 probably the most out of them all, and so I was a little bit disappointed when I sort of got the card and started playing with it and started to hear it. And so but it's fine. I mean, it's fine. There's really no other way you can say. It looks nice, it's good at stock, it's okay at some overclocks, and that's what it is. So I'll let you see for yourself, and I'll do a few different tests now. So I'll start with stock settings first. So this is the twin Frozr 3 OC edition, so it's 880 on the core instead of 800, and so this is just everything stock, everything left, no changes. And so I'm gonna run Valley. So starting out, 41% for the fan, which is 1500 RPM, 58 Celsius. Up to 45 Celsius, 1900 RPM. Alright, so it's been running for 15 minutes or so. Still at stock settings. GPU temperature seems to have leveled off. Everything's been kind of leveled off now at stock settings. 64 Celsius. 99% usage, 48% fan, which is 2163 RPM, and you can see the memory and the core are still at stock settings, 880 and 1250. 1250 megabytes of RAM usage at this point. So now I'm going to bump up to my first overclock setting that I have found works well. Here is stock settings, and this is what it sounds like. The first overclock setting that I used for a while was I was able to put the power limit up to +20, keep the core voltage even locked down or just at stock, and then get the core clock up to 1000. I hit apply. I found that the temperatures and stuff weren't too much higher at this clock than at stock clock settings. So you can see core's at 1000 now. Memory I left alone for this setting, and I'll let it run for 15 more minutes, and I'll get back to you with that. Alright, so it's been running for 10 minutes or so on the 1000 megahertz setting. As you could see, I didn't actually turn up the stock voltage. The only thing I did was turn up the power limit. So 67 degrees, that's a couple degrees higher. 48% fan, that's the same fan speed. 97% usage, so similar usage. And then everything else is similar. I didn't actually pay attention to what the frames per second were before, but you can see what the frames are now compared to what they were before. So you can see that it's actually not much. You can see 66 right now. It's not much higher heat than it was at stock. So this is a setting that I actually like a lot, and I use this a lot on my own. A lot of the times I just run the card like this. Alright, so now I'm going to step it up to the next setting, which is a more aggressive overclock. And as you saw, the fan speed is actually 48%, which is the same fan speed as it was on stock. So, in theory, it should be the same amount of noise as stock, but you can hear for yourself. This is the 1000 megahertz power limit +20, and this is what the fan sounds like after running for 10 minutes. Sorry. This is the next overclock setting that I'm going to do. So, core voltage I have at 1100. Power limit at 20, +20 again, core clock at 1100, and memory clock at 1500. And now I will run Valley again. Alright, so already 71, 55% fan, which is 2500 RPM. And this has only been like 1 minute. 72. So you see how it goes. With the lower clocks, it's fine, but then once you get up a little bit, it starts to get a little bit, loud. So I'll run this for 10 minutes like I did with the other ones, and then I'll come back with the temperatures after 10 minutes. I'm back with the 1100 megahertz setting, and so 75 degrees, 96% load, 67% fan, which is 3322 RPM, and you can see 1100 megahertz on the core, 1500 on the memory. So 74 degrees, 75 is good, that's fine, but the problem is it's gotten to the point now where I personally wouldn't want to use it like this, mainly because of the noise. So I'll take you in for a closer look at the card, and you can hear what it's sounding like now. Alright, so for a conclusion, you can see that 1100 and 1500, you can go a little higher than 15 on the memory. This card lets you go to 1575. This card, though, only lets you go to 1100 on the core. I think there is a built-in limit in the BIOS of the card, probably, that determines what the limit's going to be in Afterburner for your specific card. And I found that most of the GPU overclocking utilities do abide by that rule. So some of the ones I've tried, like Asus GPU Tweak and Gigabyte OC Guru, some other ones as well, all sort of abide by that 1100 megahertz rule, and they don't let you go past that. But there is, if you want to go past that for this particular card, there is a way to do it. I found that Sapphire's Tricks utility does not seem to follow that rule at all, because you can see here 1100 and it will go all the way up to 1600, and I believe if you hit apply, it'll just jump the slider back into the middle and let you go even further. So there's no limit at all with Sapphire Tricks. But the limit is there for a reason. Once you get past 1100, it starts. You heard how loud it was at 1100 with the voltage you need for 1100. Once you get past that, I was able to get mine all the way up to 1200 on the core, but the problem with that is you need about 1200 on the voltage for that, and then it starts to get just crazy loud, like 80-90% fan, 90 to 85, as high as 89-90 degrees on the thing. So it's totally unrealistic for daily use, but you can do it in Sapphire Tricks if you want to push it further. But the limit's not the same for all cards, because there's a Club 3D card, the Club 3D Royal King, I want to say, or Royal Ace, whatever the 7970 or 7950, pardon me, whatever the Club 3D 7950 card is, that has a 1200 megahertz core limit built into for Afterburner. So you can bring it up to 1200 on Afterburner. And if you want to have a look at that card, go to Time to Live Customs. Tom Logan has a video on that that shows that. So that's a look at this card, and sort of a look at the different fan noise levels and fan percentages at a few different overclock settings and at stock. And obviously it's totally up to you how loud you want it to be, or how loud you're okay with it being, versus how much clock speed that you want to run at. Personally, I sort of would probably leave it around 1000 for myself. But to be honest, the 1100 one with the 1100 on the voltage was actually pretty surprising in terms of how it only went to about 65% on the fan, which was pretty good. Once you get the door on, you're probably not going to hear it that much. But once you get, if you use Sapphire tricks to pump your core clock any higher than 1100, then you're going to need to get your core voltage higher than 1100 as well. And as soon as your core voltage goes past 1100, the card starts to get really obnoxious and ridiculous with heat and noise levels and all that stuff. So 1100 is probably a good sweet spot for the high end. And I'd say I was also very surprised and pleased that you were able to get the card at 1000 on the core with no voltage adjustment, just by putting the power limit up. And so that's nice as well, because you get almost no extra heat, as you saw with that. Alright, so this has been 7950 cooler performance, and I'll be back with more videos later, as always.